Oh, well, I got... it's not really working. I'm having to put a lot of force that's not really digging in. Let's grab a mallet. Ah, yeah, great. It's working perfect now. Today on Your Question is Answered, I'm answering a question from Chadslaggle1662. I've got a bent gouge that has a secondary bevel. I can only use it with a mallet. I think that the secondary bevel is the reason, but I'm struggling to get rid of the secondary bevel. So, I think I've recreated the problem. So, let's have a look at a couple of things. So, okay, we have a secondary bevel on there. Maybe it'll work with that secondary bevel. I think we're better not to have it. Now, the other thing, at this moment, this chisel is not sharp. It might have a secondary bevel, but it's not sharp, and it actually has a burr sitting here, all of which is going to make sure that it's not sharp, and is going to make it very difficult to use it by hand. With the mallet, yeah, we can bash it through, but it's still not going to take good cuts either. So what we need to do is remove that secondary bevel, in my opinion, so I'll show you how to do that, and get rid of that burr. So before we get rid of the secondary bevel, let's talk about how we get rid of that burr. So I usually use a bit of 400 grit. If you've got a slipstone, you can use that. We won't talk about that. Well, a lot of people don't have them, but what people do have is 400 grit wet and dry. So what you want to do is find a piece of dowel that closely matches your arc. Okay, so I'm going to use this big bit of dowel here. So to get rid of that little burr, and you probably cannot see that burr there, but I can feel it. All it is a bit of metal that's bent over. So what we're going to do is sit the wet and dry on the dowel, and we're going to pull back. You want to pull back because if you pull forward, you're going to cut your paper. And what you're looking to do is keep it as flat so you don't add an inside bevel there, because you want that flat on there. So we've got that burr removed. Now I'm just going to jump straight to the strop, and I want to see if this is now going to work with that secondary bevel, just so we can see if that's causing our problems. So you can clearly see that secondary bevel I showed you there. Now, we also want to strop the inside. It's just a dowel with a piece of leather just stitched around it, a little bit of honing compound. So now we've got rid of the secondary bevel, got rid of the burr and polished it up. Let's go back to the wood. Can we use it? Well, it's working a little bit better by hand, but it still requires quite a lot of force. So let's go ahead and get rid of that secondary bevel altogether. Now, if your range of sharpening stones are not enough to get rid of it, I'll show you what we're going to use. So I could go to my 600 diamond stone. I'm pretty sure that I'd confidently sharpen that bevel back out and get rid of that secondary bevel. What we're going to do is grab some 80 grit sandpaper. Now, I should say you could redefine this using a grinder, even something like the manual one here. The only problem that I now realize with that is, I was thinking about that you could use that, is that with a carving gouge you want a flat grind. If you start using a round wheel to reprofile it on one of these, what you're going to end up with is a concave grind, and so it's going to be curved out of it, and that's not what you want. You want it flat. So some things like the Tormek allow you to use it on the side, so you could use one of those, but it's going to be best to do this by hand because although it might take longer, it's going to work better. So we've blacked our bevel out here. So what you want to do is you're looking for this motion here, but what you want to do is do a couple of tests. So hopefully you can see there where I've removed it off the front but not enough off the back. So I'm just going to adjust my angle. Now it looks like I'm getting it pretty even. So that's the angle I'm going to stick with. And we can see we've already removed most of that black, and that double bevel is almost completely gone there. What I'm going to do is just run it back and forwards. Couple more, making special attention to get right out to the wings there. And we can see now, or hopefully you can see there now, that secondary bevel's gone. And that was just a few strikes on very, very aggressive paper. I've got a 400, 600, 1200 diamond stone. Relative grits, it doesn't really matter whether you're using diamond stones, water stones, sandpaper. We now go through our normal sharpening process. And well, you can use, if you can't match it, you can use the marker pen again. And really, you've got to get safe with using this motion. So I'm sort of locking the wrist to actually hold it on that motion. And we're looking for a change in that scratch pattern. Or the feeling of a little burr on the inside. Which you might actually have a little burr on the inside from using your coarse sandpaper. I usually find with the coarse stuff it doesn't leave much of a burr with the sandpaper for whatever reason. So I can feel a little burr on the inside there, so I'm going to move on to my next grit. You're just looking to keep full contact on that bevel the entire time. Now we're going to go on to the 1200. We can see we've polished that back out. Now, before we go ahead and remove that burr, I'm going to go to the strop. With these, I just sort of flick. Because you only want to go in one direction. You can also do it this way. As long as you don't push the cutting edge towards your strop, because you don't want to damage it. So we can see that's looking fairly shiny there now, but we do still have that burr on the inside. Let me show you another way how you can remove that burr, and you don't even have to use sandpaper. Let's make just a little round. So we essentially have a radius here and we have a round. Now what you need for this process is something like Auto Sol. Drop a touch on each of these and work them back like this. If you need to add more honing compound, just keep adding it. So what you've essentially created is a little honing block. So I can feel that that burr's gone. The other way, in that arc, and you can see you just move it backwards and side to side, and you can see we're taking metal off. It's gone black. Once you've done that, clean it off. You can see that it's all polished on both sides. So we've got no burr on the inside, hopefully. Now, one thing you have to be aware with these is, if you've got cheap chisels, these ones are relatively cheap gouges. the steel is not very good, and sometimes the burr does not fully disappear on these because it just flops back and forwards because it's bad steel. It's not very good quality. The other thing that you can run into is that if someone has put this on a grinder or a band sander to sharpen it, is that the tempering could be wrecked on the end of your chisel, and in which case you could just keep going until you get past where the tempering's wrecked, or you might be looking for a new chisel. So that's just something to watch out for. So let's go back and see how well this works by hand now. And we can see, if we look at the results here, I've got them right side by side for you. We can see that that is nice and smooth versus what we had before. We were hitting it with the mallet and it was just chunking it out. Some timbers, like pine, do not carve well. I wouldn't recommend trying to carve pine, to be honest. So what I've got here, a little bit of jarrah. So this is a very hard silica timber. Let's lock that down. Let's see how well we do with the gouge on this. And you can see it's just working so much better on this piece of hardwood. So what's really happening and why I think the double bevel is not good in these is you want one continuous bevel. The idea is as it comes, the gouge comes in, it hits the bevel. So even a normal bench chisel, as it comes in, it wants to move away from the bevel. So when you're lining up and you're chiseling the wall of something, that's why it goes like this and tries to pull into it, because it's trying to move away from the bevel towards the flat. So in this case, the flat is here, the bevel's on the back, and so it's trying to ride away. And that's by design on a carving gouge. You do have in-canal gouges which have a bevel on the inside, and they're for something completely different. They're not for carving. But the reason we have it this way and they're designed like this is so that you don't take too much of a bite. The idea is, with carving, you'd rather take too little than too much. And so if you've got to do it another few times to take what you require, that's better than taking too much, and that's why they have them like this. So there you have it, folks. I know I've covered quite a few things related to this topic, and I hope that helps you troubleshoot what's going on with the gouge, and also to get rid of that pesky double bevel, which I don't think you really want. And I know some of you out there probably have a lot more experience with carving gouges than I do, because I don't use them that often. I use my V-gouge more than I do my normal carving gouge, and that's pretty straightforward to sharpen. So if you do have any other ideas or something that I might have overlooked here, do leave that down below so we can help everybody out here. So if you like this video, please give a thumbs up down below, hit that subscribe button down there, and do sound off in the comments if you've got anything relevant to add, as I mentioned before. Bye for now.